Hi, I'm Hazel. It's Saturday today, and we're just gonna do the one topic this week. This week, Blizzard has been sued by the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing over discrimination and sexual harassment claims following a 2-year investigation. The filing is available to read online and contains multiple examples of pay discrimination and harassment. In this video, I want to go over some of those examples, exactly what's happened here, and then talk about the Blizzard response and the internal emails that have leaked. So in the lawsuit, I won't go over everything, and I will warn you that there is some very heavy material in the filing if you choose to read it. We have multiple examples of women being consistently assigned to lower roles, paid less for the same work, and being passed over for promotions. In one quote, a newly promoted male supervisor delegated his responsibilities to his female subordinates in favor of playing Call of Duty. Other male supervisors would refuse to communicate with female employees, going to their male counterparts for information. We also have multiple examples of women being harassed at work and at work events, both in alcohol-fueled cube crawls, where men would drink and go around to various cubes to harass women. They also lay out multiple examples of women being harassed at work and at work events. In particular, they have reports of Alex Afrasiabi, who was a WoW dev dating back to Vanilla, who would openly harass women at BlizzCon and had to be pulled off of them by supervisors. You've got J. Allen Brack named here. That is the current president of Blizzard. He is cited to have been well aware of this and then given him verbal counseling, which did nothing to stop it. Afrasiabi remained there at Blizzard until June of 2020, when he departed very quietly. Shortly after this news broke on Wednesday of this week, you had Blizzard giving an immediate response to IGN that was long and awful and weird. Here's a couple of quotes. They call the claims distorted and in some cases false. And for the record, this is a government body that has been investigating for years and talking to employees directly, so calling it false is rough. They also made the bizarre statement that this behavior from unaccountable state bureaucrats are driving the state's best businesses out of California. They claim that they've changed a lot over the past couple of years. You know, they've updated their code of conduct and added a hotline. The whole thing feels very, it's okay now because, you know, we stopped. With no proof at all that any of these systems they're talking about actually work to prevent the discrimination that they are being accused of. In terms of equal pay, they make a big show in this statement about how they reward employees based on performance, and that's going to come up again later. So at this point, people are furious. You have many Blizzard employees speaking up on social media with their own stories that back up these claims. You have many of them saying that Blizzard's statement does not speak for them, and they're just as angry as we are. And then you get J. Allen Brack, current president of Blizzard, and the guy who gave Afrasiabi a pass and a chit-chat. He sends out an internal email that was leaked immediately and reported on by Jason Schreier. The email says that discrimination is unacceptable, all claims are investigated, taken seriously, and can be made without fear of retaliation, which is in direct contrast to what the lawsuit lays out in terms of retaliation. Here's that bit for reference. The suit claims that employees' complaints were treated in a dismissive manner, not kept confidential, and as a result of them, female employees were deprived of work on project, unwillingly transferred to different units, and selected for layoffs. So Mr. Brack apparently doesn't agree with that, and the wild thing is that he's trying to sell this. This is an internal email, not to us, the public, but to people that work there, that have gone through this themselves personally, and they have friends that have gone through this. It's just weird. And then he talks about how much he values women and disdains bro culture, and he says that he's spent his career fighting it. If that's true, it looks like, based on reports coming out from his employees, that he's done a pretty poor job. So that wasn't great, but it gets worse. We have this second leaked email. This one is from a recent Activision exec called Fran Townsend. She calls the claims incorrect, old, and out of context, as though there's any context in which any of this would be fine, or indeed an expiration date, you know, a little more of the, well, maybe it happened, but it was so long ago, you know. Love that. She then gives this paragraph about how nobody's harassed her, so it must not be a problem. And then she has a paragraph on equal pay that reiterates that line that we heard before about how pay in Blizzard is based solely on performance. And everyone involved in the review has had anti-discrimination training, so surely there must be no discrimination. That statement that keeps coming up just feels extra gross to me because they're not saying that they don't pay women less. They're saying that they're paying for performance. And on paper, paying for performance is fine, but in practice, you have this external agency saying that Blizzard has been systemically not paying women equitably for similar work, and that Blizzard has not been promoting them at the same rate. So this harping on the line about how they pay and promote based on performance just feels like they're not saying that they pay women enough. They're saying that they're just not working hard enough, they're just not performing as well. And that is very hard to believe. That whole sentiment of maybe if you worked harder, you would get equal treatment is pervasive, it's fundamentally flawed, and in many, many cases, you have women working substantially harder to try to make up that difference, and they still get passed over. So that brings us to now. We have a number of notable WoW team members that have been posting solidarity, support, and talking about how Fran Townsend in particular does not speak for them. You have reports that some employees have walked out of their work from home work in protest of this. And then you also have some employees taking the step of posting their salaries and salary histories online for transparency to help people compare to find out whether they are in fact being paid equitably for substantially similar work. The next question would be, where do we go from here? I would say that the good news is that this lawsuit, while containing awful details, the fact that it's getting to this point is an opportunity for change, even if Blizzard doesn't seem to see it that way just yet. The lawsuit is seeking court where, if successful, there will be reparations, including back pay and lost wages. That would be a good first step. I also think that the visibility and the backlash that this thing is getting is going to be good to some extent for the whole industry, because these sorts of things happen when people believe that they are acceptable. The problem is that it's very easy for somebody to be against discrimination in theory, but then when it's their own job and their own coworkers and their own reputation on the line, all of a sudden it's complicated, They don't want to get dragged down with the ship, especially when they have their own families to provide for. There is strength in numbers with this kind of thing, so having all of this conversation about it might give some people the confidence that when they do speak up, not only are they doing the right thing, which it would be great to do anyways, but that, it's more likely that people will speak up and stand up for their coworkers and the women in their lives when they don't think they're going to get decimated for it. It would be nice if that wasn't a consideration, but it would be naive to think that that doesn't come into play. Another part of this conversation is about what we as consumers should do about it and whether or not to boycott, essentially. On one hand, the responsibility is with the leadership of Blizzard and JL and Brack, and if they won't do it, then I guess the California courts to make them. All of this is awful to hear about, and it's completely normal to feel hurt and betrayed and disgusted, especially from a company like Blizzard that many people still idolized and aspired to. It's hard to stomach continuing to give them a sub fee or publicity when they've let this happen, especially considering their responses. On the other hand, I'm not convinced right now that boycotting Blizzard is going to be a direct help to the women that work there. For one, because a lot of those women still work there and have worked very hard on these properties. Another thing to keep in mind is that this kind of harassment and discrimination is not unique to Blizzard. It's pretty widespread and systemic through not just gaming, but the technology fields in general. That doesn't make it okay. It just means that playing like the Amazon game doesn't necessarily make it any better. I don't have a high horse to stand on with this. I stream on Twitch for a living, which is owned by Amazon, but it's possible that a boycott would be effective and would achieve change, but it also is possible that it's just more of a personal comfort and then like a reputation saving move. I'm not really sold either way on that one. I would say that this kind of behavior is rampant not only in workplaces, but also in gaming spaces, in guilds and groups and discords. And that if everybody that does not approve of this behavior leaves WoW, then what you're left with is a space of people that just think that this is okay. I don't condone any of what's happening at Blizzard. I also don't plan on leaving the WoW community right now, and I wouldn't expect anybody else to unless that's their own personal decision. I think that there's value in staying in these spaces and demanding that they become better. If you're looking for something that you can affect more directly, there are charities that support women's initiatives. I will link a couple of them in the description. I would also say, don't put up with a culture that dehumanizes women. It always starts small. It starts off with jokes and then comments and stories that are played off as jokes. You don't have to wait for a woman to get kicked out of a lactation room or groped at a party before you say something. I would also beware of the assumption that just because a woman is present at jokes like this, then it must be fine and signed off on. Many women have learned to not speak up because you get labeled as not fun and can't take a joke, and then excluded further from the spaces that you already had to fight twice as hard to get into. It's not hard to treat women like people. I think I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys tend to be pretty good eggs, but just, pay attention in your own workplaces and your own social groups where you can say something when you need to. So that's my piece. I sincerely hope that Blizzard makes actual changes and to their leadership if need be. I'll believe it when I hear it from the women that work there, and if not, then I hope the courts rip them to shreds.